Hello, and welcome to today's session on why SD-WAN is more important than ever for carriers. My name is John Isch. I work for Orange Business Services in the connectivity solutions area here in North America. Just as a quick point of review, Orange Business Services is a provider of global network, security, UC, and integration services, among many other things. We own and operate a global network that reaches more than 220 countries and territories throughout the world, and we count over 3,000 global companies as our customers. I should say right off the bat that my focus here is on global customers, and that's the area I operate in. A lot of the reference points I have by talking with customers is with global environments, not necessarily a regional or even a local or single nation network. It's typically a global in scope. So when I look at when you think about creating a product around SD-WAN and kind of what we bring to the market, I think it's important that we look at sort of where we came from and why we are where we are, why we're driving in this direction. Historically, we've seen networks that looked like this, right? They were MPLS based private networks that connected branch offices to headquarter or data center based applications. I also put on here a Business Talk, which is our SIP-based service, our global voice service. It enables call center, audio conferencing, video conferencing. I'm just putting on there as an example of value-added service, and you'll see why that's important in just a minute. But I put that on there as a reference, sort of something we can use as a reference point for services. So if you look at, okay, what has happened with our customers from there, we started again with a private MPLS network, and over time we've added to our customers' network an internet element of that. In some cases, that internet is there as a backup to the MPLS, so it's a way to get from the office back into the MPLS network to get to those critical resources. We see customers using that to split browsing traffic off. So you see their web content protection, sort of a generic term for any kind of security. I will pause here and talk briefly about security and say that when we talk to a customer about SD-WAN or any internet-based service, it is vitally important that we have a conversation around security. Something we have that conversation with any customer who's looking to deploy an additional service to their network. I think it's the most important thing about security is that we are developing flexible security infrastructure. And while some of that is directly tied or closely tied to an SD-WAN environment, a lot of it can be external to the SD-WAN environment, and that dictate of how that security infrastructure is placed in the customer environment is entirely based on the customer security policy. I would love to be able to say, here you use web-based security and that will solve all your problems, and we can go to 100% of our customers and show them, how great this web-based security is, or a local firewall or centralized firewall, whatever the architecture might be. The reality is that in my experience, it's extremely difficult to get a customer to change their security infrastructure or change their security policy for any technology, really. So it's really important that as we work through with customers on what does SD-WAN mean to you, that we have the security conversation and typically have a security person in the room with us to talk about, what does that look like for you and how do we accommodate the customer security infrastructure into the SD-WAN design. I can sit here and say the most efficient SD-WAN environment includes, split tunneling and a cloud-based security platform, but that doesn't mean anything if those two things don't match a customer security strategy. So it's all about matching the customer security strategy when we get to that point. So if we take sort of the next step and say, okay, what's really driving? I truly believe that this is the driving factor behind a lot of what we see with SD-WAN, as well as this idea that I've got this internet-based network and how do I control it or add more control into it. It's really about this idea of cloud, and every customer that I talk to has got a cloud strategy. That's no surprise to anybody who's on this call, right? But I think that what I have seen is, variations in that cloud strategy. I've seen customers who say it's a cloud first strategy and it's a very aggressive move everything to the cloud. You have to justify any application that cannot or is not moved into the cloud. I see customers who embrace a sort of a multi-cloud environment, and some of that multi-cloud is, private, some is public, data center based, public cloud based, and sort of this, in between state, I guess I would say. Very few customers I have today who are on the other side who say, no, everything's going to remain in my data center. I don't have any cloud services. Very few customers in that realm. I will say, I talked to a customer last week who had a very aggressive cloud first strategy they developed some years ago, and got partially through this very strict cloud first strategy and decided that it just wasn't going to work out. And they've kind of migrated to a middle state now where they said, we're going to be in an environment where some of our applications reside in the data center, some reside as public cloud and public cloud infrastructures. And I think that over time, we'll see more customers kind of get to that midpoint where there's a recognition that there are some applications that just will not move to the cloud, either for security or for, they might be a legacy application that just can't be migrated that way. Maybe we'll be to 100% cloud. I don't know, but I hesitate to use this one customer as a bellwether for the entire industry, but I suspect we'll see some of that moving back and forth. So now we're in an environment where we've got private network, we've got public network, so internet-based networking, we've got internet connections between the two using that next-gen hub, and we've got that connectivity out to cloud service providers. And this is where we are right now with layering, application-aware routing. And, I kind of use that as a generic term to kind of highlight what aspect of SD-WAN is the most important in this realm. There are many other things, right? You're creating a private network, you have the orchestration, you have any number of things that, value adds that SD-WAN brings to the environment. But if we're looking at it from a customer perspective and, okay, I've got this hybrid network, I've got cloud, I've got, small offices, big offices, I got data center, I have value added services. How do I bring that all together? And application aware routing using the orchestration within SD-WAN is a really good value add that that SD-WAN can bring and sort of layers on top of the environments that our customers already have in place. I'll point out one thing I haven't really talked too much about. There's got that the circle in the middle with the next gen hub. This is a key point of developing an SD-WAN solution. And so what we've done is we have these regional next gen hubs scattered throughout the world. They have the ability to run virtual instances of practically whatever we want. We use them primarily for SD-WAN. So we've launched a SD-WAN VNF inside our next-gen hub, and that allows us to aggregate traffic regionally, to provide direct connectivity into cloud service providers, and most importantly, to provide an SD-WAN experience for our customers that it encompasses not only the edge, but also the center of the network. And remember, I said before I was going to use Business Talk as an example. Here's the example, right? So I've got, if a customer goes out and develops SD-WAN on their own and the overlay network runs entirely across our MPLS and across our internet services, then selling that customer Business Talk or other value-added services in our network becomes problematic, right? Because the overlay exists outside of our network or does not include our network as part of it. So what we've done is developed a managed SD-WAN solution that incorporates this next-gen hub as a hop-off point between the internet, MPLS, and more importantly, to our value-added services. So when we have a customer who has SIP services with Orange, we can deploy SD-WAN without any consequence, right? It's as simple as using the next-gen hub as a hop-off point where you get off the overlay network, get onto the underlay network, and access these value-added services. So why is that important? Well, I can use that application-aware routing that I show in this diagram to manage that voice traffic, even if it's being served from the center of our network. So that's a really important point around how do you create an SD-WAN environment. It's not just about the edge. It's about how do I tie these services and these various underlay networks together And we feel that this regional next-gen hub is a really good way to develop a solution that both uses SD-WAN, gives us all the value of SD-WAN, but also allows us to tie in these networks and give customers access to these value-added services. So then, that kind of is a natural extension into, okay, what does it mean to create an enterprise service, or what do enterprise services look like with a customer? The primary, in fact, I think every bullet below the first bullet could probably be indented and made a sub bullet. But our primary goal here is to add value value on an SD-WAN product over the customer doing it themselves. It's, any customer can go out and buy SD-WAN on their own and create an overlay network, right? That's, I think that's very well known and something we see with, some of our customers. The important thing here is that from an Orange or from a carrier perspective, how do I use SD-WAN to add value, or more importantly, maybe, how do I deploy SD-WAN and still add more value than if the customer was going to do it on their own? So the first bullet in that point is improving customer visibility and manageability through innovative tooling. This is probably the most important thing, right? Is that I, as a service provider, I have the ability to show customers what their underlay looks like, whether that underlay is internet-based or MPLS-based. I can deliver to them visibility on that network. I can provide them visibility into the value-added services that I talked about. So we use, SIP services or voice services as the example. I have information I can deliver to the customer about how that network is operating. If I also own the SD-WAN, then I have complete visibility into the overlay network. I can combine all this information to create a single picture of the customer's network for them. So that's really important, because in a customer DIY environment, that is extremely difficult to do, right? If I have multiple providers and I'm trying to aggregate all this information to create a single view of my network, and in a trouble incident management type of scenario, to be able to see where the problem is versus 4 different areas giving me 4 different alarms or 4 different situations. So that's really important, right? Is that we provide that. And so I talked about visibility. Manageability is the same, right? So use of APIs and our tools to be able to allow customers to make real-time changes in their environment, even in a fully managed solution. So those are 2 very good things we can provide, and things that we can provide to a customer that a customer can't do on their own. So very important, right? I talked quite a bit about this, about seamless integration in the prior slide, so I won't spend a lot of time here, but providing that seamless integration is something we can do in a managed SD-WAN where it's integrated into our network. That becomes a lot more problematic if a customer's out doing that on their own, right? How do I integrate internet, MPLS cloud, and value-added services if I don't have full visibility into all those, or I have to do that all at the edge, or even in a data center where there are 3 or 4 of them globally. A global carrier like Orange is much more able to do that integration many more places in our network and provide a lot more value, a lot better round-trip delays, a lot fewer roadblocks in the network, all those kinds of things. The last thing I'll talk about in enterprise services, I think that is really important, and I think it's probably the least understood when I'm out talking to customers who are just going down this road of SD-WAN, is that there's going to be a time when your network, where you have the SD-WAN network, your new overlay network, and your underlay network operating at the same time. That integration of the 2 networks is really important. Now you can say, okay, the SD-WAN is an overlay and it's using my MPLS or internet as the underlay, therefore it's one network. Yes, you will get there. You will get to the point where it's one network, and the only important information or important change process you have in your environment is the orchestration layer. SD-WAN is in complete control over the environment. That's great for an end state. There is going to be a period of time, depending on the size of your network and the migration process you're going through. It could be 3 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years, where your underlay and overlay coexist. So you've got some sites that are not yet on SD-WAN. And I know this seems like a fairly simple short-term problem, but you can get in a lot of problems with your user base if you ignore that intermediate step and you have a network that's not operating properly for any of that period of duration. I don't care whether it's 3 months or it's 6 months or 2 years. If your end user environment is not happy during that period, you're going to have a very difficult time with your SD-WAN rollout. And the business is the reason we're doing these networks or creating these networks is for the business, right? If the business isn't happy, there's trouble. So the important thing here is that we have experience with rolling out many of these SD-WAN environments across many different customer variations. So it's important that customers understand that they can leverage that experience internally and prevent all those problems from happening. I think sometimes that step, as I said, it gets sort of ignored as customers look at SD-WAN and they consider the end state only. They don't consider the mid state when I'm going to have two networks running at the same time. From a carrier perspective, as I stated before, when we were talking about security and saying, hey, there's a lot of variability in what this could look like, a lot of different customers operating in different ways, that's really important. And if we're in an environment where we're creating new solutions for every customer, that's not a very good way to develop solutions that are profitable, right? The most profitable solutions are the ones that we can repeat often. So that's our endeavor, right? Is to not only be flexible with the architectures we create, but also create repeatable solutions that we can bring out to multiple customers as we go through. So with that, I'll close it. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of sort of what it looks like to create an SD-WAN solution within a carrier environment for a global environment, global customers. If you have any questions or would like to contact me after this, here's my email address. Feel free to reach out to me, and we'll sit here for a few minutes to do some Q&A. Thank you for your time.